Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 11:52 a.m. on Wednesday the 4th of March 2026. It's a lovely day, lovely breeze and sunshine, so I've brought the birdie boys outside and they're very happy to be out. They didn't get to go out yesterday because I didn't put them out, plus I had to go and shuffle myself off to the dental hospital, so to book in for root canal work that needs to be done on a tooth up here. They have to completely pull everything out and redo it. Didn't have a short enough root going through, and they're kind of curious as to know why, but they think that that might be the source of some of my health issues. Maybe not. They said it might just have been like a kind of mineral that they couldn't push it all the way through. But anyway, one root, which is just filled with cement, because it's a dead tooth, is much longer than the other, which only comes halfway. So I'm dreading that. And then they just called me again to book an appointment for the tooth extraction of that molar, which happens on the 24th of March. And that one's going to take 4 hours because students do the work there. I don't mind that so much because at least they haven't learnt to be sadistic and aloof drama yet. And they've got to learn. And anyway, the tooth has to go. So that's a 4-hour journey, that one. And the root canal, they tell me, will take 3 hours. And I'm going to have to take the bus, which I'm not looking forward to, but it cost me $32 in parking yesterday, which is just, doesn't seem like a lot of money to most people, but that's a big chunk of my pension gone just on getting treatment. So I'm upset, very upset about that. And I have to go back in a few days by bus to pick up the form and get the 3D scans done on my jaw, because they want to have a proper look at the root canal tooth before they actually go any further. It may also need extracting depending on the level of infection, if there is any further up in the jawline, or whatever you call up here. Anyway, I'm not a happy camper, as you can imagine, but I'm never really a fucking happy camper, am I, lately? And it's because I'm beaten down and worn down by various health issues, and the constant struggle to get taken seriously and get treatment. This tooth actually is in the process of dying and could have been saved if they'd gotten me in earlier, but waiting lists, I was put off for well over a year. And, partially my fault, because I thought the pain was coming from this broken tooth here, and I knew that was a dead and broken tooth, so I wasn't overly concerned. And it turns out to be this one. Astonishing, isn't it? So it's partly, my not being able to factor in where the pain's coming from, and I didn't actually have any pain till they put dry ice on all the three teeth surrounding the root canal, just to see which one is problematic, and all the other teeth are very much alive, because I nearly jumped off the fucking dentist chair, which was comical because I'm lying backwards like a fruit bat. So she said, they're alive, which is good that the other teeth are healthy, but there's too many eroding piano keys in my mouth for me to feel happy about anything right now. Losing my teeth is one of the worst things that can possibly happen to me, because I fought hard to retain them, even paying 10 grand for those 2 front choppers back in the day, because I simply don't want to look hideous, people of earth, and trying to preserve what I could of my looks and my choppers. But now I've reached that wonderful stage in life where everything dies on you, and it's just watching things ping off one after the other. I'm already missing a uterus and a gallbladder, and now there'll be 2 teeth missing there. Anyway, enough about that. But it's very fragile making, and I was very trauma activated last night. I think because when they tested all the nerves on each tooth, it shoots up the pain into the nerves, and of course that must have activated my entire nervous system. So what with the big, luscious, beautiful blood moon last night, which was so luminous, it lit up the whole back garden. And then my bladder was upset. I had to get up 7 times last night. So every time I had to get up to pee, I would just go out and admire the light from the moon and think to myself, wow, what a fucking life. And I think around about 2 a.m, 2:17 a.m, the moon, I didn't get to see the blood moon because it happened about 9ish and I actually forgot about it. But from about 11 on, when I was out looking at the moon, and 2:17, it seemed to be the brightest, and it really was beautiful. And I thought, well, I'm alive to see another night of beautiful moonlight. And I was tempted to just walk around the garden naked, and or sky-clad as witches call it, and soak up the beautiful luminescent light. But I just thought, I'm not well, got to go back to bed. Kept going back to flaming bed and then not sleeping. So it was an ordeal last night, and I'm going to have a few ordeals, what with the root canal tooth and the extraction of this one, and so it's very humbling and very terrifying. Anyway, I have a debrief this afternoon with my psychiatrist, so I've got to squeeze in a bit of a time for a story. I missed out yesterday, and I was going to take a break for a while, but it just takes my mind off all these health, dental struggles, and sparks a bit of joy in my life, I suppose. What else have I got going on? It's nothing and no one else except seeing my psychiatrist, or via telehealth now, on a 2-weekly basis, and the lovely Rati who comes to clean weekly on a Thursday. That's my only interaction with other humans now. But of course I have the lovely birds, so there is that. Just saw a whole 5 or 6 dragonflies flying above the roof of my house. Well, that's a good omen, isn't it? Dragonflies, always a very potent, powerful, beautiful omen, bringing me a bit of luck. Got no one to go with me to the dental hospital. No one gives a shit about me. So I'm going to feel very fragile and weak. And going home after each surgery is going to be difficult. I'll be in an altered bloody state each time, from the anaesthetic and trauma activation and the pain. It's not good, actually. But what can you do when you're alone in this world? You just have to handle it, people of Earth. Well, I'm not going to bother reading the introduction, or perhaps I should. How long does it go for? about 4 or 5 pages long. On the other hand, it looks quite interesting, and we're about to read short stories edited by Jeffrey Eugenides, Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Middlesex. A great love stories from Chekhov to Monroe. My mistress's sparrow is dead. My mistress's teeth are dying. Oh, small as violin. Fuck it. But anyway, it is actually partly systemic abuse because I was left too long. It's evil is what it is. I'm also grieving that I know that that's the reality, but there's nothing I can do about it. Look at the beautiful hearts and the dead sparrow and the couple, and it's quite beautifully illustrated. Right, introduction by Jeffrey Eugenides. 1. Lesbia's sparrow. The Latin poet Catullus was the first poet in the ancient world to write about a personal love affair in an extended way. Other poets treated the subject of love, allowing the flushed cheeks or alabaster limbs of this or that innamorata to enter the frame of their poems, but it was Catullus who built his nugget or trifles around a single near obsessional passion for a woman whose entire presence, body, mind fills the lines of his poetry. And from the first excruciating moments of infatuation with the woman he called Lesbia, through the torrid transports of physical love to the betrayals that left him stricken, Catullus told it all, and in so doing, did more than anyone to create the form we recognize today as the love story. Gaius Catullus was born around 84 BC. In Cisalpine, 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 I'm assuming, Gaul. The son of a minor aristocrat and businessman with holdings in Spain and Asia Minor, and lived until roughly the age of 30. It's not a very long life, is it? Had to get busy being romantic if you were going to be dead by 30, people there. Look at all the years I wasted being an asexual celibate, holding on to my poussée because I got tired of being used and abused and trashed and cast out and othered and slandered and raped and strangled. What a waste of good horse flesh is, Dave Charles once said to me. Fuck you, motherfucker. But anyway, where were we? Yes, I've had 30 extra years of life, and I guess I can be well satisfied with that. Damn it. The mummity, as ever, defiant and rebellious and stoic and a little bit triumphant. Doesn't pay for private dentistry that would have been of higher calibre, and perhaps fixed things in a timely manner and saved me this fucking epic destruction of my body, mind and spirit. I want to cry when I think about it, but crying won't change anything. Look at the beautiful blue just appearing almost in a love heart shape through the trees. Ah, sweet, isn't it? Well, I'm a shaman, so therefore I see pareidolia and symbols and almost everything. The spirits are never far from me. Closer and closer they bind me to them because they know my time is imminent. How imminent? Don't know. How long is a piece of string? How defiant can the Tanya be, pushing herself along for a few more years, hoping against hope for her beautiful life and her true loving man. Oh, sweet, isn't it? I spent the whole night, because I was awake and not sleeping, doing affirmations. So, seemed a bit pointless actually, but I have time. I have time to affirm the things that I want from life. Whether they actually ever manifest, only the gods can tell. I'll just show you these gorgeous happy little boys. What are our happy little boys doing? They're chewing your beaks. These sweet little babies. There's a little Bo and my little Kermie, sweet little babies. We're 45, Mum. Alright, whatever. I don't actually know how old they are. So I joke that they're 45. They're probably around about, I don't know, 8 or 10, I'm guessing. Phoebe had them for 2 years and she inherited them from her sister who had them for a few years till she passed. And so 2 years, and I've had them, it'll be a year in May. So that's 3 years of their lifespan, nearly spent, well spent, my boys. Yes, handsome boys. Kermie was so excited to come outside today. And when I went and got the gloves, or the mitts, he flew around the room, and then he just stopped and let me catch him and looked at me like this. All excited and happy. Aren't you, little boy? Yes. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Sweet little birthdays. Yes, it's taken 9 months, but they're slowly kind of falling in love with me and getting used to me, which is sweet. Maybe in another year they'll be sitting on my shoulder and walking around the garden like Charlie used to. One can only dream. Right, where were we? Lived until roughly the age of 30. It was as a very young man then that he found his way to poetry and to Lesbia. Lesbia wasn't her real name. Her real name was Clodia. Classical scholars disagree over whether she was the Clodia, married to the praetor Metellus Celer or Keeler, Celer? Metellus Celer. Just sounds I don't speak Latin, but it just sounds better, maybe. Infamous for her licentiousness and possible matricide. My goodness. Can be most unfortunate who you fall in love with, can't it? People capable of murdering you. I get it though. I get it. It drives women to just not be able to take the abuse one more fucking day. But then there are some women who are not abused and are just cold-blooded homicidal maniacs. So there is that, you know. Swings and roundabouts. Kearney's looking at me like, what, Mama T? What swings? What roundabouts? Just chew your beak, Kermie. I'm reading a story to the people of Earth. It makes sense to them, if not to you. Right. Does it though? Does it really? Lesbia might have been one of Clodia's sisters, or another Clodia altogether. What's certain is that she was married, and that Catulus's relationship with her was adulterous. Though, like many adulterers, Catulus disapproved of adultery. In poem (61), he writes, yes, that's correct. L is 50, X is 10, 1 is 1. I was just worried it was the other way around. Anyway, in poem 61, ants, ouch, he writes, your husband is not light, but tied to some bad adulteress, not pursuing shameful scandal. Will he wish to sleep apart from your tender nipples? He found himself in the case of Clodia/Lesbia, compelled to make an exception. He became involved with a wicked, aristocratic Roman lady who used him as a plaything. Or, the alternate version, he fell for a fashionable married Roman girl who ended up sleeping with his best friend Rufus. Whatever the details, one thing is clear: a great love story had begun. Of Catulus's many hendecasyllabics. Hendecasyllabics. That's a new word for the Tanya. 61, still learning new words. That's why reading is good for you. Keeps your brain active, people of Earth. Staves off Alzheimer's and dementia. Although it didn't help my mother, and she read 5 books a day. Fuck. Well, we won't think about that. Of Catulus's many hendecasyllabics devoted to his relationship with Lesbia, only 2 concern us here. The first 2, the poems having to do with Lesbia and her pet sparrow. Sparrow, my girl's darling, whom she plays with, whom she cuddles, whom she likes to tempt with finger, tip and teases to nip harder when my own bright, fingertip, and teases to nip harder when my own bright-eyed desire fancies some endearing fun, and a small solace for her pain, I suppose. So heavy passion then rests. Would I could play with you as she does, and lighten the spirit's gloomy cares. That's poem 2. Poem 2a is a fragment, and by poem 3, Lesbia's sparrow is dead. Passe mortuus est miei puellae, passe deliciae miei puellae, quem plus sila oculus suis amabit. Excuse my bastardized Latin, which I don't speak. Catullus writes, which translates as, my girl's sparrow is dead, sparrow, my girl's darling, whom she loved more than her eyes. Incidentally, this poem, or more specifically, the onomatopoeia of its two central words, passe and pipiabat, did more than anything I can remember to make me want to become a writer. There is music in writing. I'm not really a musician by any standards. I can barely plunk away at the ukulele, sing tunelessly, but there is a cadence and a eroticism and a kind of a muse, M-U-S-E hyphen, ick, in writing and in articulating your words well in whatever language you happen to articulate in, people of earth. I can still hear our Latin teacher, Miss Ferguson, piping out in her most piercing sparrow's voice, passe pipiabat, getting us to notice how much the plosive rhythm resembled a bird singing, that words were music, that at the same time they were marks on a page. They also referred to things in the world and in skilled hands, took on the properties of the things they denoted. Was for me at 15 an exciting discovery, all the more notable for the fact that this poetic effect had been devised by a young man dead for 2,000 years. A little bit of eternity just in that alone, isn't it? Wonder how many of my mad scramblings and musings will be preserved for 2,000 years. Since I don't have grandchildren or legacy to leave behind to future progeny, it'd be nice if my words meant something to someone out there, somewhere, somehow, at some point in time. Oh, smallest violin. Who'd sent this phrase drifting down the centuries to reach me in my Michigan classroom, filling my American ears with the sound of Roman bird song. But back to the poem. The pluperfect of pipiabat is elegaic. Elegiac? I spelt it elegiac. The bird used to sing. Now its song has been silenced. Bobo was singing a lovely song this morning, weren't you, Bobo? Mama loves it when you boys sing. Yes, I'm talking to you. Songbird. A Catullus. And by the way, what does the Mama T always say? We will not be silenced. Only death shall silence us. Wow. I don't know who's going to look after you if I die, but you've already lost one owner and been transferred by another, and I'm trying to hold it together so you have a good long life with me, birdie boys. There's no guarantees in life. It's sad but true. Catullus, who in the previous poem had cause to wish the bird would fly away, now changes his mind. "Oh, what a shame," he writes. "Oh, wretched sorrow, your fault it is that now my girl's eyelids are swollen from crying." Things were bad with the sparrow around. They're bad with the sparrow gone. Nothing is keeping Lesbia from giving all her love to Catullus now. But Lesbia's no longer in the mood. Worse, her crying has ruined her looks. If Catullus gave us, I still remember my first puppy love, a sweet little Orthodox Jewish boy. By Orthodox I mean Chabad, Lubavitch, little Lubavitch Jewish boy in Melbourne, named Jeffrey Eric Meinrad, who told me, I met him when I was 10, but I think we had this conversation when I was about 11 or 12. It was just prior to returning to New Zealand. He said, "You need to stop crying." "Why, Jeffrey?" I said. "Crying is not good for you. It'll make you ugly before your time." "Who told you that?" I asked. "Everyone knows. Everyone knows that's what it does to you. Makes you ugly before your time. Stop crying." Oh, I was already severely depressed by the age of 11 from all the familial abuse that was going on. How could he possibly have understood that? 14-year-old boy knows nothing about that. By all the gods. So I let it roll off my shoulders like water off a duck. But I never forgot that. Stop crying. Why? Because it made him feel uncomfortable. The enormity of my grief. A grief I've carried all my life. Now my teeth die in my head and it's an ordeal. If Catullus gave us the confessional love story, these first two poems delineated its scope. The book you're holding in your hands, which takes its title from Catullus, is an anthology of love stories. They were all written in the past 120 years. There are translations from Russian, Chinese, French, Austrian and Czech writers. There are stories by famous dead writers and by young Americans. Stories involving, as in Milan Kundera's The Hitchhiking Game, two lovers taking a road trip in communist-era Czechoslovakia. To the two terrifically well-groomed adolescent trendsetters and tastemakers from the near future in George Saunders's John. To the little boy in Isaac Babel's First Love, who falls for the Christian neighbour who shelters him during a Russian pogrom. Despite the multiplicity of subjects and situations treated here, one Catalan requirement remains in force throughout. An Catalan requirement, Catalan is a region in Spain, dear goddess, remains in force throughout. In each of these 26 love stories, Either there is a sparrow or the sparrow is dead. Like my beautiful Charlie, who was not a sparrow, but a glorious, featherless rainbow lorikeet with attitude. By the gods, boys, you could only hope to have half of her spirit. They're very sweet boys, but they're not Charlie. Not yet, anyway. 2. A labour of love. At the behest of the energetic, unstoppable Dave Eggers, the Bono of Lit, I've been reading almost nothing but love stories for the past year. Note the entire proceeds of this anthology will go to support 826 Chicago, the literacy project here in Bucktown, and another labour of love. In discovering and gathering these stories, my method has been maximally random and sociable. At lectures and book parties, in elevators with editors, and at literary festivals with fellow novelists, on college campuses, in loud tapas bars, over a delirium tremens, which implied he was drunk out of his fucking skull. At the Hop Leaf on Clark Street, I asked whoever happened to be nearby to name a favourite love story. Ooh. A Jonathan Franzen, bobbing off the Amalfi coast after an illegal dinner of sea urchins, suggested 3 separate stories by Alice Munro. I have a book that I bought from her as well that I was going to read today, but I decided to go with short stories just to switch things up a bit. Kathy Chetkovich nominated Secretary by Mary Gateskill, which I didn't select, not about love I didn't think, and Mary Robeson's Yours, which I did. Jhumpa Lahiri was the first of many to insist on the dead. Excuse me. Asked to propose something from his own oeuvre, Martin Amis struggled to find anything sufficiently romantic. I didn't confine myself to writers. Natasha Egan of the Museum of Contemporary Photography in Chicago mentioned a story I'd read a few years earlier and loved, David Bezmozgis's Natasha. The German artist Thomas Demand had me look at Robert Musil's difficult and rather punishing Tonka, which I tried my best to forget but couldn't get out of my mind. How like love. Edwin Frank, editor of NYRB Books, was responsible for sending my way the work of the illustrious Chinese writer Eileen Chang, which was a revelation to me, and I suspect will be a revelation to many American readers. And then there are the students and dinner party guests, the bookworm bartenders, the voluble taxi drivers. Many stories in this collection didn't need an advocate. They were among my favourite stories already. As a way to narrow literary focus, selecting love as your theme doesn't help much. Viewed a certain way, almost any story appears to be a love story. Generally speaking, however, What animates most of the stories in this collection isn't agape, but eros. The love here is mainly romantic love. In almost every story, you'll find a lover and a beloved. A subject pursuing an object. In Miranda July's Something That Needs Nothing, a young woman longs for the love of her best friend, only to finally win it at the expense of turning herself into another person. The spinster in William Faulkner's Southern Gothic, A Rose for Emily, whose chances for marriage have been doomed by paternal opposition, devises a desperate measure after her father's death to keep her next lover at her side. A frustrated teenage love affair leaves the narrator of Stuart Dybek's We Didn't with a memory more indelible than any resulting from consummation. Yes, those puppy loves are sometimes the greatest and best loves of your life. They remain forever untainted by sexual evisceration. At dinner just the other night, asked to list and describe the love stories I planned to include here, I did so at length and was met by furrowed brows. It wasn't what my dinner companions had expected when I'd said the word love. They were expecting happier, fluffier stories. They were expecting love. And so here I should make an important distinction. He has a little note at the bottom. The Dead, the story The Dead, is in the public domain in the United States and will appear in the American edition of this anthology. To my great regret, however, I was unable to secure permission to republish this much anthologized story in the United Kingdom. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Makes it very difficult. I'll just show you what little Kermie thinks of it all. Kermie, do you own your stories? Yes, Mama. I'm making my story up as I go along, looking at you, kid. Yes, I know. You're very beautiful with your long tail feathers. I'm glad they grew back. Very glad they grew back. What is an Indian ringneck without his tail feathers? Just a stumpy stool pigeon, biding time, waiting to die. Better yet, waiting to live, like the Mama T. Kissy, 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 handsome boys. Kissy, kissy, kisses. All right, well anyway, I think they get a bit mesmerised by the sound of my voice. They really enjoy it when I read you stories, Pickle of Earth. They really do. Happy boys now. Didn't get a story yesterday, did you? Didn't get a story, didn't get to go in the garden. It was a bit of a bleak, bloody day. But you got music playing on the radio while Mama went to the hospital. Nice music. Oh, there goes the water dragon. He's a busy lizard. Isn't he, Kermie? Sits there with his head up high, looking proud and dignified. Right, number 3. What is this thing called a love story? Please keep in mind, my subject here isn't love. My subject is the love story, a compendium of philosophical notions of love. Might begin with Plato's hypothesis that human beings were originally hermaphroditic, severed into two sexes. Men and women spent their lives seeking their other halves. As St. Thomas Aquinas reasoned that before the fall, erections were volitional. Aren't they always volitional? Don't know. Adam, sinless, couldn't have randy thoughts. In the garden, confronted with Eve's nakedness he didn't recognise as such, Adam's issued disinterested elevator operator commands. Up was one, and afterward, down. Evolutionary biology does away with love completely, finding the novelist's most dependable material, adultery and divorce, nothing more than a hardwired imperative to pass genes along to the next generation. Hardwired indeed it is. So, in my case, pointless and a waste of decades of energy, but I loved my babies. I loved them. And for a time they loved me too. Mustn't think about that, people of Earth. There's a tree could hang a very heavy, thick rope on. We mustn't think about it. It was stolen from me by societal declension and atrophy, ongoing cumulative trauma and systemic abuses. Just felt a spot of rain. Evolutionary biology does away with love completely. Oh, we read that. Sexologists see only a chemical state of infatuation that lasts a couple of years, transforming thereafter among even the most well-matched couples into a bath towelly togetherness known as pair bonding. Just going to throw that watermelon I put out for the crows on the ground. There you go, boys. It's all juicy and yummy. When it comes to love, there are a million theories to explain it. But when it comes to love stories, things are simpler. A love story can never be about full possession, the happy marriage, the requited love, the desire that never dims. These are lucky eventualities, but they aren't love stories. Love stories depend on disappointment, on unequal births and feuding families, on matrimonial boredom, and at least one cold heart. Love stories, nearly without exception, give love a bad name. We value love not because it's stronger than death, but because it's weaker. Say what you want about love. Death will finish it. You will not go on loving in the grave, not in any physical way, but that will it all resemble love as we know it on earth. The perishable nature of love is what gives love its profound importance in our lives. If it were endless, if it were on tap, love wouldn't hit us the way it does, and we certainly wouldn't write about it. The stories in this collection bear this out in each and every instance, from William Trevor's Lovers of Their Time, which tells the story of a married travel agent and pharmacy clerk who have nowhere to meet but an out-of-the-way bathroom in an old hotel. Sounds dreadfully sordid. Yeah, throes of passion. You don't care about sordidity that much, do you? I've never really lost myself to that kind of passion. Sex in a bathroom's not my idea of fun or comfort or pleasure. You see it in the movies and you think, oh, that looks interesting. Should try that sometime. And then you get real. You get real, people of Earth. Right, to Gilbert Sorrentino's postmodern. The moon in its flight, where the teenage lovers are thwarted not only by fate, but by the literary conventions of romance. To Harold Brodkey's scandalous story, Innocence, which consists of the extended account of a Harvard senior's unflagging attempt to bring his girlfriend to her first orgasm by means of a virtuosic and intensely cerebral act of cunnilingus. The characters in these stories seek a paradise that recedes endlessly before them. I'll have to put an age restriction on this because, the word cunnilingus is correct English, but algorithms don't understand human coitus or passion or sexual proclivities. Just saying. Escape from one set of circumstances brings confinement in another. The fated love turns out to be a human fantasy. Desire is a homeostatic system. Push it down one place and it rises in another. 4. A Roman bird song. The stories in this volume fall within the continuum laid out by Catullus's first 2 Lesbia poems, from voyeuristic longing to disenchanted entanglement. You can't always get what you wanted, you get what you need, but sometimes when you get what you want, it's bitterly disappointing, hardly worth a change in the knickers, people of Earth. Ask me how I know. Never mind. That was a long, long time ago. And here I sit, a toothless old hag in the sacred space garden. There's a garden in my room. Would you like to take a look? There are very many special things you'll find there. But not today, Josephine. Probably not tomorrow either. Although I could be convinced to change my mind depending on the offerings, the heartfelt loving intentions, and the consistency, the devotion, the loyalty, and the faithfulness, the intellectual stimulation, and the possibly cunnilingus stimulation as well. But ooh, naughty, naughty, Mama T, let's calm the farm. Why do you have to laugh? I'm not dead yet, people. Don't bury while I'm still alive. Give me time to unfurl my 1,000-petaled lotus. Some of you carry my petals with you as heartfelt memory, and some of you are yet to attain the 1,000th flowery. Dumb motherfuckers. Well, they ruined it for themselves by being bestial and vile and sadistic and cruel. On we go. The narrator of Spring in Fialta recounts the many missed romantic opportunities he's had with a woman named Nina, whom he'd first met and kissed on a pitch black Russian winter night years and years before. Oh, bliss. It's amazing how you can carry a love with you to the day you die. Nina recurs in the narrator's life like a theme in a piece of music, and every time the strings announce her arrival, the cymbals clash and she disappears. I'd been under the impression lately that I was cooling ever so slightly on Nabokov, the sober middle age. That sober middle age had made me less susceptible to his lush lyricism. But rereading Spring in Fialta reminded me how much better Nabokov is than everybody else. Not only does the story impart to the reader a profound wistfulness in which the evanescence of love expands to suggest the fragility of life and time and memory itself, but Nabokov manages at the same time to weave into the story secondary and tertiary levels of meaning. There's what's happening with the weather, for instance, the cloudy and dull spring of Fialta, that, in the background of the narrated events, is slowly transforming, thawing, dripping and brightening, in order to flash out at the end with the story's tragic revelation. Pretty boys. Along with this, Nabokov has studied the story with recurring details of the circus coming to town, of speeding automobiles, all of which will figure in the denouement. The literary craft in all this mirrors the literary imagination. The seeing of patterns, the orchestrating of fate. Very oddly, I just had a sense that something said, you need to go to Paddington. Why would I go to Paddington? If anywhere, I need to go back to Hurston to get that form from the front desk and get that stupid 3D scan done. Got no desire or need to go to Paddington. What's in Paddington? It's a wonderful antique shop in Paddington, but I bet you though, that popped into my mind, someone I know is probably there right now. I pick up on things. They're probably in the antique shop and they probably looked at something and they've thought, Tanya would love that, and I've picked up on it. Telepathy can be a pain in my ass sometimes because I don't know who's at Paddington or if even that's actually true information and accurate in this current moment in the space-time continuum. We're 1 hour in, so it's 1:52 p.m. Just in case someone sees this video and leaves me a message and says I was indeed in Paddington at 1:52 p.m. on the 4th of March, looking at the antique shop just as you surmised. Ah, it helps to be a bit bonkers, doesn't it though? Sometimes it's my superpower. Doesn't fucking get me private dentistry and pay the bills though, does it? Doesn't get me my beautiful mansion, Byron Bay or Noosa or somewhere equally lovely. Doesn't get me anything but atrophy and dead teeth and slowly dying. I want to cry, but crying won't help me either. Jeffrey Eric Meinrad was right about that. After you've cried oceans, even the tears barely merit any sense of release. I did cry last night though, when I came home feeling overwhelmed from that whole ordeal. My friend Michael Brecher on Facebook posted a story about a dog that had come with his owner onto a plane, his handler, and some nasty man said, I don't want a dirty stinking dog sitting next to me on the plane. And the man said, this dog has just been through disaster relief and found 8 bodies and saved many others. This dog's more than earned its right to have a seat on the plane. And the flight attendant said to the complaining man, do you want to move seats? And he said no. So she upgraded the man with the dog to business class, gave him the finest seat in the house. And on reading that, how people applauded and were kind, I burst into tears. Michael wrote he doesn't even know if it's a true story, but if it is, it was deeply beautiful and poignant and emotional. That dog deserved his seat in business class, dirty and exhausted though he was. Someone once upgraded me to business class, flying for my conversion to Judaism. 1988 it was. I got upgraded. I can't remember the reason. Someone took a shine to me. I tell you what, business class is wonderful. You're the first off the plane, even before first class passengers. It's quite wonderful. That was a very spiritual journey, that. Very spiritual. God was with me every step of the way. I felt him. Even I got hand delivered to my brother-in-law's home because he wouldn't take time off work to pick me up from the airport because he's a selfish cunt. And I was 19, didn't know my way around Melbourne. Hadn't been there since I was a child. So the sisters from the convent at Kew, I'd befriended the nun sitting beside me on the flight over. They drove me in their little car right to my brother-in-law's front door. He couldn't believe it when he came home from work, and I told him the story. How the hell did you do that? I said, don't underestimate me and my relationship with the Holy One. Things need to happen. They happen. Sometimes in the most profound and magical and all spiritual ways. He just stared at me in shock. Nothing but no one was going to interfere with that conversion to Reformed Judaism at the time. Nothing but no one. And the nuns were so kind to me. They were lovely women. The lady I had befriended on the plane was as drunk as a skunk because she had an ear, nose and throat complaint. So she was drinking copious whiskies. I said, "Sister, do you really think that's a good idea?" She said, "It's medicinal." Wow, what can I say? Blessed be the Holy One, and all manifestations of holiness and magic and mischief, and sometimes a bit of mayhem too. But those women drove me to my brother-in-law's home. They had a convent in Kew, and he lived right next door in Auburn. Serendipitous. And I was having panic attacks, freaking out how I was going to get myself there, which buses to catch and how to actually get myself there. And of course, as always, even as a young woman, 19 years of age, worrying about having enough money to get myself around too. By the goddess, what a life. Always on my last nerve and my last dollar, screaming into the void, even to this very day. But God is good, and the gods and goddesses are good and look after me in the most astonishing and miraculous ways at times. And I know that because I've seen it over and over again. You're looking a bit aggressive, my little handsome boy. His eyes are spinning. Don't you dare attack little Bo. I'm watching you. Look at him. You should see his eyes change colour. Might do it in front of you. You gonna be a good boy? He was going and his eyes, he was reaching up and his eyes were spinning. Good move, Bo. Move away from the psycho pigeon. Just as I was saying how miraculous the gods are, my birdie decides to act out. 'Tis what it is. Nature. Right, where were we? The literary craft and all this mirrors the literary imagination, the seeing of patterns, the orchestrating of fate. That the narrator brings to his random meetings with Nina throughout the years a literary imagination that every lover possesses and is a veritable Shakespeare of. The Spring in Fialta isn't only about a love fated never to be. It reenacts the story making we inevitably engage in whenever we fall in love. You playing with your toys, little Kermie boy? Good boy. I like it when you play with your toys. The sparrow in Spring in Fialta is Nina's husband Ferdinand, who's always in the way. In the case of the lady with the little dog, however, the sparrow is dead. Gurov, the unfaithful husband in the story, seduces Anna Sergeyevna, an unhappy young married woman, while they are both visiting Yalta. Gurov, who has done this sort of thing before, assumes he'll forget Anna as he's forgotten other women. But he doesn't. Ha ha ha. That little love angel Cupid sometimes gets the best revenge of all. Beware its sting, it bites both ways. Her memory haunts him, and finally he pursues her to her hometown, where they resume their affair. In the story's final scene, the two lovers clandestinely meet in a dingy hotel room in Moscow. And then comes one of the most enigmatic endings in literature. And it seemed that just a little more and the solution would be found. And then a new, beautiful life would begin. I was that close to it, I could taste it. But integrity is everything. Honour and integrity is everything. A hill worth losing teeth for, dying on. A clear conscience is everything. But that carefully contained, constrained passion smoulders still, people of earth. Sometimes the best loves are the loves that never manifested, because they remain like a jewel in the crown of a fairy tale dreamer's dream. Sweet, isn't it? Also a bit psychotic. Need to organise a lawn mowing man soon. The Brisbane City Council came today. They're reliable, the Brisbane City Council. They're very good. I have to say that. Blew up 25 lawnmowers when I used to do the whole area myself, but I'm very grateful for their assistance. And it was clear to both of them that the end was still far off, and that the most complicated and difficult part was just beginning. One of Chekhov's admirers, Serafima Remizova, was highly disappointed with this ending. "I read your story," she wrote to Chekhov in a letter, "and I should like to ask you to write the continuation of it. You have abandoned your heroes at the most critical moment in their lives, when they are about to make a decision. But which one? It is important for someone like you, Anton Pavlovich, who can see into the human heart, to show how happiness can be found in such a situation." But the inconclusiveness of Chekhov's ending, his failure to show how happiness can be found in such a predicament, along with the suggestion that perhaps it can't be found, is exactly what makes this story one of the greatest love stories of all time. It ends where the preliminaries of love end, after the stirrings of attraction, after the trysts and renunciations, and the renunciations of those renunciations, when desire has attained its object, and the real, the heavy problems begin. Which side of the bed you're going to lie on, whether you keep the cap on or off the toothpaste, who gets to fart salubriously in the sea air and who doesn't, and other vignettes from contemporary, ordinary domesticity. I've read The Lady with the Dog countless times over the years, and my interpretation continually changes. When I was younger and more sophisticated, I was sure the ending was ironic. The emotional deadness of the lovers' marriages was sure to infect their own new relationship in time. Not necessarily. Sometimes you have dead marriages because they were dead from woe to go to woe, alpha to omega, and back again. Sometimes the love of your life comes later in life, and that is the real love that you always dreamed of. But the mummy is a bit of a fantasist and an idealist and a psychedelic dreamer. She never found her one true love. Never. He never found her. Or if he did, he deemed her too fat or too crazy or too wild or too self-determined, and got intimidated and withered away. Oh, smallest violin. Right. Reading the story now, older and more innocent. There is a kind of return to innocence with aging. I noticed that yesterday, how I started to regress into childishness under extreme trauma activation. Became mischievous and childlike. It was very sweet, but also a bit odd. Maybe that's why my love life doesn't reach fulfillment. No one I can trust that I can be mischievous and childlike with, and sweet and endearing in ways without having them steamroller and destroy and crush me, and deny me my mush and my agency and my will to thrive and my small tiny heartfelt measures of success. Denied and denied and denied. All they can think about is throwing their leg over someone else. Fuck you. Anyway, where was I? Yes, you're going to laugh like Mama T soon. Reading the story now, older and more innocent, I couldn't help finding in Chekhov's last line a glimmer of optimism. The story seemed to me this time, though, to be about that miracle you come across every once in a long while. Two unexceptional people, for no demonstrable reasons, being exceptionally in love. Christianity, which in its beginning retained much of the earthiness of Judaism, a sense of the body and its sexual appetites as inherently good, was slowly influenced by Neoplatonism, which held for a strict duality between the body and the spirit. Asceticism, abstinence, monasticism, You can blame it all on the Greeks. Nevertheless, if the stories in this collection provide any evidence, it's the renunciation of the body that distinguishes true love from any simulacrum. When the body is no longer desired, when beauty has faded, when you're a toothless old hag in your sacred space garden, shucked off by bloodless, cowardly, piss-weak curs. When possessiveness has been relinquished, real love shows its face. This seems to happen most often in old age, or as the result of a winnowing of ego. Born with desire, these stories say, we grow into love. And then only sometimes, and only if we're lucky. Mama too so unlucky she couldn't even get a reasonable priced fucking car park yesterday in a crisis situation. It's always a crisis when I have to get my teeth treated, people of Earth. Well, that was yesterday. This is today. And tomorrow is another matter altogether. In Alice Munro's magnificent The Bear Came Over the Mountain, the husband of a woman suffering from Alzheimer's disease, after regretfully relinquishing her to a nursing home, finds, I'm going to cry, on his subsequent visits, that she is slowly forgetting him and becoming involved with an elderly male patient that I used to see when I was visiting my mother in the Alzheimer's ward. Quite common, that is. The husband responds to this death in life with an act of love that goes beyond the bounds of matrimony, approaching the selflessly divine. There is no greater death than the death of love in the hearts and minds of those you love who are still living. Ask me how I know. Deborah Eisenberg's shatteringly beautiful and unerring as some other better Otto suggests that in moments of existential crisis, the only lifeline remains the quotidian, humdrum, durable presence of that imperfect thing, one's life partner. Each of these two stories is nearly impossibly good. The complexity of the characterization alone is a marvel, and Munro's model husband was, it turns out, a serial philanderer some years back. And the irascible Otto of Eisenberg's tale becomes, despite his scorched earth policy relating to other human beings, a person of uncommon tenderness and philosophical insight, in the way depleted soil is enriched by burning. I hear you, brother. I fucking hear you. Fertile ground for new life to spring forth, though. It's always new life after a bushfire. Not always the life you planned for, though. A different kind of life, a different way of being in the world, incomprehensible to the ordinary, but always, always extraordinary. You singing to the lorikeets? You like the lorikeets, don't you, Kermie? They're Charlie's friends. Yes, they are. They came to meet you and greet you when you first arrived at Sacred Space. Stared at you for a long time trying to figure out where our Charlie was. Then they made you welcome, and you've loved them ever since, haven't you, Kermie? Yes, you have, because you knew you were the new birdie on the block, and you'd been made welcome. And little Bo. It's a wonderful thing when you're made welcome by the wild ones who see you and recognise your spirit. I don't want to go on about that because I'll burst into tears again, so we'll just calm our fucking farm. Carry on. These two stories are the bleakest of the collection too. They tiptoe right up to the abyss. Munro by unsentimentally describing the inevitable decay of the mind and body. Eisenberg by insisting on the absurd and pitiful insubstantiality, the puniness of the self. And yet these are the stories in which love, to use an old-fashioned word, triumphs. To borrow from Raymond Carver, whose work is also included here, this is what we talk about when we talk about love. Not eros, maybe, when all is said and done. Closer to agape. Had Catullus written only those two opening poems about Lesbia's sparrow, he might not be remembered today, although they prefigured his own fraught relationship with his married woman, and although I find in them the poles around which, pardon me, all love stories revolve, there is a whole world of detail, particularity, and specificity in between. Read these stories then, not to confirm the brutal realities of love, but to experience its many variegated compensatory pleasures. From the bracing acerbities of Laurie Moore's How to Be an Other Woman, to the stark assessments of Richard Ford's Fireworks, to Bernard Malamud's comic presentation of One Very Picky Rabbi, the stories that made their way to me by sometimes circuitous paths never failed to be just the thing after a long, unromantic day at my desk that I most wanted to read. It is perhaps only in reading a love story, or in writing one, that we can simultaneously partake of the ecstasy and agony of being in love without paying a crippling emotional price. I offer this book then as a cure for lovesickness and an antidote to adultery. Read these love stories in the safety of your single bed. Let everyone else suffer. There's this thought too. After Lesbia spurned him, what did Catullus do? Kill himself? Drink to excess? No. Mostly he wrote and eulogized his friendships and his dead brother. He brought to his work the same devotion he'd once lavished in vain on Clodia, and he left behind his poems, which speak to the stories in his collection that burn, dazzle, delight, and sadden, depending. Passe pipia but. Here's a loose translation. Better a sparrow, living or dead, than no bird's song at all. Finally, as this book is a charitable undertaking, I ask the reader to be charitable towards its numerous and unavoidable omissions. And I shall be back tomorrow, maybe later today if I feel so inspired, but more than likely tomorrow because I'm very tired. As I enumerated earlier, a very bad night last night. Can't find my bookmark. I still left it in the kitchen. But I'll be back tomorrow with the first story of this book, A First Love and Other Sorrows, Harold Brodkey. But that introduction was so beautifully written that I feel quite soul-nourished and fulfilled, almost like I've eaten the most delicious meal of rich and luscious cream-filled foods like a beef stroganoff and some delicious cream-filled pastry. It's like, just want to bite into it and carry on reading, but I don't have time. Have my debrief in half an hour. So I'm looking forward to this. I think we will enjoy this together. My beautiful, loving or love-inspired people of Earth. Those of you who are still alive in your souls and hearts, minds, and even occasionally in the loins. Blessed be from sacred space at Titania's realm. Bye for now.